Hello, welcome to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker. Today, I'm going to be giving you information, real estate news that you can use. What I have been seeing on many different social media platforms lately is to talk about reparations. So I figured I would just add my 2 cents into it. But what I've seen is that many people think it's either a new topic, and I would say that that would be mainly the millennials. And then there are other people who don't seem to really know what reparations is. So let's dive into what does reparations mean. Reparations can come in either two ways or both together. One, it's a compensation order where an offender makes a compensation payment to the victim of the crime. The second way is a restitution order requiring that property is returned to the victim. Now, according to many economists, they don't really agree on an exact number as far as how much would be dispersed out to African Americans when it comes to reparations. But I would say out of the few that I've seen, the average seems to be $4 trillion. Now, we have 3.2 million African Americans who are directly descendant from the enslaved people that was here before. I say enslaved because nobody is really born a slave, really. And being that they were brought over here from Africa, many of them, some of them were sold, but most of them were stolen. I say enslaved instead of slave. So let's just be clear. And then what I did was I took the $4 trillion, I divided it by 3.2 million. And what I realized is that it means that 1.5 million would be dispersed to every single African American. I felt the need to do that because I saw another video where it said that we would only get $500. Not true. When you do your math and you do it correctly, you get $1.5 million a person. Now, another misunderstanding is that the bill that's being presented, which is called HR 40, is really just a study. It's not the actual reparations that would be given to African Americans. The study would be to figure out the exact number that is owed, particularly regarding slavery, and it would also be to determine how would that money be dispersed. When I looked at, I believe it was Capitol Hill, where several people were speaking on it, including Sheila Jackson Lee, who I believe is one of the spear hunters for this particular bill. I noticed that there were many different sides to it. It didn't seem as though many were clear whether or not each person should actually be handed a check. From what I gathered, most of the people seem to believe that it's best to give the money to an institution or to several institutions that would help uplift Black Americans. There was one minister on the panel. He did feel it was okay to give checks out to senior citizens, particularly those who were in nursing homes, but he did also feel that the rest of the money should go to institutions. There was another person, and that's why I had to do the research as far as what is reparations. He said that he didn't want reparations for slavery and that it would be an embarrassment. He said he wanted restitution for all of the Black Wall Streets that were taken away from Black Americans. And then there was another gentleman, a much younger gentleman who represented, I believe, the millennial crowd, who wasn't too crazy about reparations at all, in particular because he felt that it didn't properly address the issues with the criminal injustice system, and also he was more of a proponent for better schools and safer neighborhoods. Many of the people who opposed this bill, opposed this study, say that everyone is dead. The whites who were Union soldiers, many of them are dead, even though some of them actually aren't, and we're still paying their pension to this day. And they also claim many of the slaves were dead. So being that everybody is dead, they feel that no money needs to be paid out. Then others were saying that African Americans are crying victim, which I don't really understand why that is, when we have other races who are getting reparations, and one of them wasn't even held, or shall I say, wasn't hurt here in America. The reason why we are paying them is because America turned its back against one of the countries that was hurting them, or several of the countries that, while they were being hurt, while they were being tortured. So, but another argument that was brought up that I thought was very, very intuitive is that if we still honor treaties that were created 200 years ago and all those people are dead, then why not look into reparations? So those were some of the arguments that were brought up regarding that particular the issue of reparations. Now, me personally, this is how I feel. I do believe that African Americans, particularly those who are direct descendants from African American enslaved individuals, should get reparations. But here's the thing, I don't think we should only get it for slavery. There were Jim Crow laws, there's been housing discrimination, there's gentrification, there's civil rights movement that people had to endure. People to this day still have to go through wrongful convictions. Then you have people who recently were accidentally foreclosed on. I don't even know what that means, but that is what several banks claim that they did. And many of those people who they accidentally foreclosed on happen to be Black people. And then, of course, I do agree that Black Wall Street, all of them, should be returned back to the African Americans who bought those houses and bought that land. I do think that it was really unfair and really an injustice not to do so. But in the interim, I do believe that if a white family, for example, or anybody of any race, bought that property with their own money, the government should also compensate those individuals, because they would have to, pick up and move. Me personally, I do not trust the government in giving me land. I know that many years ago, before I was born, we were promised 40 acres and a mule. Here's why I would not want 40 acres and a mule. Or I would prefer to choose my own 40 acres and not let the government choose it for me. Near Niagara Falls, New York, is an area called Love Canal. That land was used to test bombs by the military. And then later on, they went and they developed homes and sold them to African American people. To this day, people up there are dying of cancer. And many of the people, because it's been happening so often for so long, they think it's normal. Many of them don't realize that, wait a minute, you can live longer than 40 years old if you just pick up and move to another part of the country, to another part of New York, or leave altogether. So that is why I don't trust America choosing the property for me, and I'd rather choose my own property. Number two, a mule, like really, I can't even walk a dog, much less a mule. So, if they give me a bus, then okay, we talking, because I can do some touring, um, and start another business that way. So yeah, I'll take the bus over a mule. Now, there are others that I've seen, not on the, not at Capitol Hill, but other people that have posted saying they want a check, and other people saying, no, we shouldn't get a check. I understand both points of view. But here's what I think. I think that there should be a stipulation before giving checks out. You see, too many of us do not know what to do with that much money. So, and then real estate, many of us definitely don't know how to handle real estate at all. So, for that reason, I believe that everybody who qualifies should go and take a test, or not a test, but they should be required to take financial management, money management classes, tax advantage classes. I believe that some sort of, to a certain degree, I do believe some money should go to institutions to teach us how to manage money, basically, how to be better stewards of money. And then once that those classes are passed, then I say give the check. Now the check might be a little bit less than 1.5 million, because I'm saying that part of the money should go into an institution, an educational institution, where they teach you about investing, money management, how to manage your taxes, that sort of thing. So in that regards, yes, I do. And there might also be classes on, there are classes about like how to get along with people, so to speak. I believe in that too, because I have seen this. I have one family member who is a funeral director. He's seen this where the family inherits a house that's paid for. When the person who owns the house dies, people start to act funny for some reason. They don't want to share the house. They don't agree on how the house should be split up, even though there might be a will, somebody's contesting the will. They don't want to, the person who wants to live in the house and doesn't want to let anybody else in doesn't pay the taxes. Sometimes they don't do the maintenance on the house, so a lien is placed on the house, and then the house gets code violations, and then this house that's paid for is taken away and given to the state. Many of us, unfortunately, who are African Americans, sometimes greed gets in our way. I don't want to say all, and it's not just African Americans. Let me just be clear. It does happen to people of other races too, but it seems as though it happens to us a little bit more than it happens to other people of other races. The other thing is, it may be good to invest in some sort of economic infrastructure, so that when we do get the money, there's a way in which we can circle it within the community, as opposed to using it, and then all of the products that we're buying is from communities that don't look like us. And then the next thing you know, within 5-10 years, we're back to being, well, not all of us, but the majority of us will go back to being poor again. So that's why I say it would be good to have an infrastructure, like even to just build a water plant in Flint, Michigan, would clean up the water, would provide jobs for the people in Flint, Michigan. That water could be dispersed throughout the rest of America and the world, and that would be a money profiting vehicle. Um, that is what I mean by that's the stipulation that I would have with that before the money is being dispersed. The other thing is this: I only believe that the money should be with African Americans, people who are descended from Caribbean descent, or like I am half Caribbean descent. So I don't believe I should get all of the money. If they were to do it that way, I believe I should only get half. People who are from other countries, Europe, Africans from Europe, Africans from Africa, I don't think they should get the money. I think it should only be African Americans who get that money. And I do believe, and you might say this is a little bit much, but I do believe that the cutoff should be something like 2012. Why? Because I think that if this were to pass, that you're going to have a whole bunch of people who never claim to be African American all of a sudden saying, oh, I have one drop. I found this here. I found it. No. If you wasn't Black or African American in 2012 and you're not 7 years old, you cannot claim to be Black now. I'm sorry. That's how I feel, because I don't trust people after what I've been through. And I've met and spoken to many people who are way darker than me, whose hair is way nappier than me, and tell me straight to my face that they're not Black. So if you're not Black, and I know you don't want to claim you're Black because it's not quote unquote the thing or popular. Don't try to claim you're Black after reparations is granted. That's all I'm saying, and that's how I feel about it. Yes, I do. Now, next on the agenda, this is the other breakdown that I feel that reparations should be given. First, I believe we should get tax breaks, property tax breaks, especially for those who were descendants of the people who were in Black Wall Street, most definitely. Two, we should be able to go back to Africa for free at least once in our lifetime. Any country in Africa, we should be able to go back there for free. Three, we should get free medical care. And when I say medical care, I mean not just for the body, but for the mind as well. Post-traumatic stress disorder is what many of us suffer from. Number 4, I believe that we should look into releasing all falsely accused members of our race, and those who were already found innocent, their charges should be dropped. Their records should be either sealed or expunged. I found out that the Central Park Five, even though they were found innocent, it's still on their record, and they have to go to court. Well, they actually have already been going to court to get it off. And I'm like, well, if you've already been found innocent, why is it taking so long? Why do you have to go back to court to get this done? That's the problem that I have, and I think that is something that should be included in this in the next bill if they are going to do reparations for African Americans. I do believe that the money should be invested in many of our neighborhoods to fix a lot of the broken down buildings, and not to gentrify it, to make it affordable to those who have been living there for at least 10, 20 years. Next, I notice that many of the police officers in my neighborhood, and I'm finding out in many other neighborhoods that have been gentrified and have been going through gentrification, the police sometimes they stay for a few months and then they're transferred somewhere else. That is one of the reasons why many police officers do not have a good rapport with the community, because they know they're going to be transferred in a couple of months. I say there should be some sort of stipulation to keep a police officer in a particular unit for 5 years before moving them around. I definitely agree that part of the money should go into better schools. Another part of the money should definitely be going into cleaning up our environment, because Harlem, especially, and many other African American neighborhoods have a problem with asthma. I myself was recently diagnosed after 47 years that I have symptoms of asthma. Never happened before. I also believe that we should have entrepreneurship classes in our community to help those who, more entrepreneurship classes, because there really isn't a lot. There are still many cities that don't have any at all. So those are what I believe would greatly improve our community, and where the reparations money, if it is approved, if it is agreed upon, and they're not just pulling my leg again, that is where I feel that the money should go to help improve the African American culture, race, etc. And I believe, though, one of the best ways to really get it to the rest of Americans, why we deserve it, and I don't even know why, after all the things we've been through, we have to even prove it, or even argue about it, or even present that we need it, and we should have it. But I know that the only way to really get to many people is to prove to them that it is actually more expensive to keep African Americans down as opposed to lifting them up. And I think the best way, or the best example would be Durham, North Carolina, the Black Wall Street, and to show how the economy of Durham was profitable when there were more Blacks who were educated and owned their own businesses, than compared to right after, when all of them lost their businesses due to jealousy of people burning it down and shooting people and what have you. So those are my thoughts, folks. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for listening, and I hope you are able to get something out of it. If you feel like you want to add your 2 cents, just drop it down in the comments, or we can discuss this on WFNY Radio's Facebook page. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.